Greetings Exiles, BullShifter here, back with another PlayStation 4 Path of Exile video. Today, I'm going to be covering the top 5 reasons why you are dying in Path of Exile. Now, I'm not going to go over the obvious reasons, running content that's too high for your level character, that you're necessarily under-geared. We will talk about gear in this video, but I'm not going to use just that generalization. They're going to be a bit more specific things that you can do to potentially fix your issue. So, number 1 on my list, and we'll look at it here, your resistances are not high enough. This is the number 1 thing that will get you killed in Path of Exile. If your fire, cold, or lightning resistances are very low, you are going to be very susceptible to dying from those types of damages. Now, as you can see from my character, my chaos resistances are very low. However, chaos damage isn't something that you're going to run into as much as fire, cold, and lightning, and there's also other ways to avoid the damage that you'll take from chaos, such as different ways to avoid poison damage and bleeding. So mainly you need to focus on fire, cold, and lightning. Now, there's multiple ways that you can do that. One of the biggest and most efficient is going to be through your gear. As you look through most of my gear, as you can see here, 45% to lightning resistance, 28 to cold. There's actually a little bit of chaos resistance there as well. But you can see that I primarily lean on my gear for a lot of my resistances. Now, the other way that you can gain some resistances as well is through your passive tree. And if you hit L3 in the left trigger, we can actually go ahead and search resist. Oops. And some of the nodes that offer resistances will actually flash here. So you'll see, plus 3% to all elemental resistances. That's what a majority of these are going to be. There are some more specific ones up here towards the top. So you have, lightning resistances there. That actually adds to your maximum, so you can go above 75. But there's quite a few around the actual skill tree itself that you can potentially get. So, if you are struggling, it's not a bad idea to go ahead, check out your passive tree, do that quick filter on resists, and see if there's any nodes, near your current tree that you can pick up real quick and higher, your resists towards different elements. Number 4 is going to be a low life pool. Now, right here, my character is just shy of 4,000 life. That's not super impressive, but considering it's more of a DPS character and not a tank character, it's not horrible, and I'm also kind of supplementing some life with some energy shield, which I'll get into shortly. But life is actually relatively easy to build. Now, if we look at our items, there's actually a few different stats when it comes to life. So as you can see here, there's plus 58 to maximum life. Now that's actually adding on to my base of life. There is, however, another modifier, and we'll see if I actually have this on any of my gear here. If I don't, typically you find these in the passive tree, much like resists. There's also a percentage increase to life. So as you can see here, 3% increased maximum life. Now, the way that I prefer to do this is I build my percentages through my passive tree, and I build my base off of my character. Now, there's 2 ways to actually build your base. There's the flat maximum life stat, and you can also stack strength, because strength will actually also increase your base on life. Now, you want a nice mix of the 2, percentage and base, because they go off of one another. That percentage is a percentage that's added on to your base. So if you have, let's say, and I'm just going to use low numbers so that this makes sense mathematically. If I have 200 base life and I have an extra 100% life through my passive tree, that's going to add an extra 100% of that 200 base health. So I'll be looking at 400 base health there. Now, obviously, the reason why you want a good mixture of the 2 is because if my base life were, and again, I'm using low numbers here so that this makes more sense in context. If my base life were 10, 100% of 10 only brings you to 20. It's not that great of an increase. So you want a nice balance between the 2. So try and stack that maximum life as well as that life percentage. Now, as I said before, how I was supplementing with Energy Shield, that brings me to number 3. You aren't using a secondary form of defense well enough. Now, there's 3 secondary sources of defense. They are Energy Shield, Evasion, and Armor. Armor you're typically going to get through your gear and through some possible passives through the passive tree. There are some uniques that will also give you some additional armor. Armor negates physical damage, so if you are like a melee character, I would lean more towards armor as a melee character than a ranged character who's going to, odds are, be taking more spell damage as opposed to close-up physical damage. However, there are, specific circumstances where that may not necessarily be true. So that's essentially the way that you'll raise your armor level. You can raise your evasion level much in the same manner. There will be items themselves that actually have evasion attached to them. They will be dexterity-based items, so they'll be more likely to roll green gems. So, dexterity and evasion and green gems all go hand in hand. The other way, aside from just the stat on the items themselves to raise your evasion, is there are some stats on the items, some affixes and modifiers that will give you more evasion, as well as stacking your dexterity stat. Much like how strength will give you extra life, dexterity will give you extra evasion. So keep that in mind as well. And there are also some skills in the passive tree that will give you dexterity and evasion as well. So that leaves Energy Shield. Energy Shield, in my opinion, is probably the easiest to stack and works very similar to life in the fact that there is +2 maximum Energy Shield. There is also a percentage of Energy Shield, which increases the Energy Shield on that specific item. So this 26%, that's adding to the percentage of the Energy Shield on this specific item, which then gets added to my main pool of Energy Shield. You can also get a plus percentage to maximum Energy Shield, which will apply to your overall pool instead of just that specific item. Now, along with those base stats that you can get on the items themselves, intelligence-based items will also have a base Energy Shield that gets added up, as well as the fact that intelligence will give you bonus Energy Shield and mana. But obviously we're focusing on the Energy Shield here. And much like evasion and armor, there are passives in the passive tree that can give you that stat as well. One thing to keep in mind about stacking Energy Shield, however, is chaos damage is the bane of existence for anyone banking on Energy Shield, because chaos damage negates your Energy Shield and goes right after your life. So it basically penetrates your Energy Shield immediately and starts taking down your life. Now, there is a passive in the passive tree that will allow you to become immune to chaos damage. However, it will lower your life to 1 hit point, so you'll be strictly focusing on building Energy Shield if you decide to build that way. So that, for the most part, covers Energy Shield, evasion, and armor. One last thing I will say about those 3: don't try to stack all 3. This is typically a very bad idea. You don't want to be a jack of all trades in this game. You want to be a master of certain things. You want to be great at certain things, not okay at a bunch of things. Otherwise, your build is going to stall. Now, there are a lot of builds that will focus on 2 of those 3, and they'll make it work. However, if you're trying to stack armor, Energy Shield, and evasion, you're going to stretch your numbers so thin that you're just not going to do well once you hit those higher tier or even mid-tier maps. You're going to start to struggle because your character isn't great at any one thing or even really good at 2 things. You're just stretched out and have low stats across 3 things. So keep that in mind when gearing and when building your passive tree. Number 2, for helping you to not die and a reason why you are potentially dying, is a lack of a good movement skill. Now, movement skills are very important for a number of reasons. One of the big ones being obviously to move through the game a bit quicker. The other one is simply to be able to get out of a bad situation. So in this instance, for this character, I use Shield Charge. Shield Charge is great. I hit enemies as I'm shield charging away and getting out of bad predicaments. Now, something that's very common with Shield Charge and other movement skills is adding something like Fortify support, which is actually going to grant you Fortify, which is a defensive boost that lasts for a temporary period of time. So having a good movement skill attached with a good support gem can kind of give you another double layer of defense. There are also curses and other things and buffs that you can add on to your movement skills as well. So don't negate movement skills. They will help you out in a pinch, not just with you moving away from, potential danger, but also buffing you as you're moving away from that danger so that you're not taking that extra damage from running away while you're not attacking. Now, the last thing on my list is going to be Flasks. Flasks are not only just important for the base mechanic that they hold, so like giving me extra mana or replenishing my health while I'm in a fight, they also have, at least for magic flasks, additional benefits that you see written in blue. So a lot of the things that will kill you in this game will be bleed, poison, shock, being frozen, potentially being ignited. A lot of the secondary skills on these flasks will remove them as soon as you use that flask. So if you start seeing your health going down because of poison, you can pop that flask and that poison damage is done. You're frozen in place. Obviously, that's a very bad thing if you're surrounded by a mob and you're just frozen in place, taking a bunch of hits. You're going to die very quickly, especially in higher tier maps and even some of the mid-tier maps. If you have a flask like this one that gives you immunity to freeze and chill and removes freeze and chill on use, you can instantly get out of that situation, use your movement skill, and get out of dodge. So these are also very important. So basically, if you learn to take these 5 tips, stacking your resistances, your health, a form of secondary defense, essentially making sure that you are utilizing a movement skill with a buff attached to it in the form of a support gem, and using your flask correctly, it should help you survive a lot more in Path of Exile and make a huge difference in your gameplay. So I hope you found this video helpful. As always, it is Friday, so at 8:30 p.m. Central Time, I will be streaming on Twitch. Be sure to catch that. Tonight I will be running the final labyrinth with my synthesis flashback character, this character right here. And hopefully it'll be a lot of fun. So I hope to see you then. Thanks again for watching the video. Hopefully you learned something. And until next time, may the RNG be with you, always.